So anyway, good evening, friends, and it's a great evening to meet you all, and thanks for joining us this time on this webinar to meet Mr. Turab Chimthanawala, a very well-known person in company secretary role. So he is the first person who has really made the mark in the company secretary field, and he is the right person here today to speak with us on his journey towards success, to be the first person to achieve such a remarkable goal, which no one has, to my knowledge at least, has not competed or rather attained that company secretary role. And it is a great boost for people pursuing BCom and people who have just completed 12th standard will also be much more benefited because they can start early and drive safely and reach the destination to become a company secretary. So, in this note, Karna Vidya Foundation takes a big pleasure in welcoming Mr. Chimthanawala. Thanks, Turab, for joining with us. And
my pleasure, sir.
yeah, it's a great day for him because he has gone to his office and returned just now around 5:30 and immediately, 5:15 or something, and immediately has joined this webinar. Thank you so much for your time and your effort and the interest shown for the benefit of people in Tamil Nadu. And we also have amidst us Rotarian Gopal, a very good friend of people with visual impairment. He is with the Rotary Club of Madras Coromandel, and he is in fact supporting the cause of the visually impaired for many years now. And he is here with us to, in fact, he is the person who connected us with Mr. Turab. He got us the details from the LinkedIn and he helped us out. And that is how we patched. And now he is here with us to give an introduction and also to appreciate the efforts. Thank you, sir, for joining here. And we have our technical person, Mr. Sada. And thanks to all the participants who are joining and who will be joining. And it's over to Mr. Gopal, sir, for the introduction.
Yeah, thank you, Rotarian Raghu. Incidentally, Raghu is also Rotarian. So, in fact, he's a much more senior Rotarian than me. So, I'll make it very short. I think Raghu has already given the introductions to Mr. Turab Chimthanawala. But just for the audience to understand, you might have heard about chartered accountant, engineer, and all that, right? But company secretary is something which has always not been understood properly in India. So people think it is just a secretary. It is not true. Company secretary today is as powerful as a finance manager or a chief financial officer. So kudos to Turab for pursuing the company secretaryship and and passing it, and also now working for a company secretary firm in Mumbai. Right, so he's also done a master's in law from Nalsar University of Law, Hyderabad, and more importantly for the audience to understand, he has also been part of the Rotaract Club of Bombay West, and he has also been helping the Blind Graduates Forum of India and many such organizations. Apart from being a company secretary, he's also a writer, and he's also a storyteller, and he has been covered extensively in the media. So whenever I Google for Turab, I get a lot of articles about the media covering him. So let us wish him all the very best for the future, and thank you for being part of it. So just to give you a few numbers in terms of company secretaryship. So today in India we have 22,000 company secretaries, but the demand forecast for the next 2-3 years is close to 50,000. So you can imagine the gap. And today, company secretary is mandatory. While all the publicly listed companies need to have a company secretary, but all private companies where the paid up capital is 10 crore and above should also have a whole-time company secretary. And that is why today the company secretaryship position is very, very important. So just to give you a brief thing, apart from being part of the leadership of the organization, they are also supposed to ensure compliance, especially statutory, regulatory, etc. So the entire board of directors of an organization work very closely with the company secretary, right? So that's how powerful this position is. So my only wish is, although we have a small turnout now, but even if one amongst you get inspired by Turab and as a company secretary, I think it's a victory for Turab, it's a victory for Raghu, and it's a victory for everybody, right? So I will now give it back to Raghu sir, and you will have to excuse me because I've got another call to attend. So Raghu, thank you for the opportunity. Wish all these people all the very best, and make sure that you're able to utilize this particular speech by Turab to your advantage. Thank you, Turab, and thank you, Raghu.
Thank you, sir, for the introduction.
Thank you so much, Gopal sir. In fact, we are so fortunate to have Gopal sir amidst us because he is very, very busy man, and he is also interconnected with many social activities. And besides that, he is here with us today to introduce, and thank you so much. And now it's over to Turab, and people whoever wanted to have something translated in Tamil, can we have voices now before we start? Can you express it? Do you would like to have something translated in Tamil, or shall we go with English alone? Shall we have some response? Yeah, I hope people are comfortable with English. So it's over to Mr. Turab.
Thank you, Professor Raghu, and also Rotarian Gopal, for the good introduction. Good evening, all. Nalla Nilkindla. Hope you are doing well. Sorry for the bad pronunciation.
That's okay. Good.
Hope everyone is doing
We are
well.
all fine.
To answer you, Nalla Irukom. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think we should thank the coronavirus that because of that everyone is locked down, so we are having this meet. Otherwise, everyone would be so busy and it would have been difficult for us to have this interaction. I also thank Professor Raghu and Rotarian Gopal for inviting me, as not only will it be beneficial for the audience, but also would help me fulfill one of my commitments, which is to help young blind professionals. And now, thank you for allowing me to interact with them. So, friends, I would begin my address with a quote. It is by Theodore Roosevelt, who was the former American president. He says, and I quote, "Believe you can, and you are halfway there," unquote. This means that we have to believe in ourselves, whatever may be our situation, disability or poor, some difficult financial condition, whatever it may be. But if we believe in ourselves, we can achieve anything. I would take an example of one of your heroes, Dhoni. He is a Chennai Super Kings star. So he was a railway contractor. But if he did not believe in himself, he would have not been so successful and not won India so many trophies. So we should all have faith in ourselves and we can achieve anything. So I would divide this discussion into three parts. First, although Rotarian Gopal has given a good idea of CS, but yet I would just give a brief idea of the CS profession. And then I would talk about the CS curriculum and the course, and then I would talk of my journey and whatever I can share with you all. I also would say that I would take certain names of certain academies or certain things which have helped me, and it would not be possible for everyone to take notes. So we could share a document with Rotarian Gopal and with Professor Raghu, and then maybe they can pass it on of the various organizations or how specific details if anyone opens. So now, to understand the role of CS, I would take an example. So visualize that this Karna Vidya Foundation is like a company. It is owned by Rotarian Gopal and Professor Raghu, and I am like the manager. They have appointed me as a manager. So they are busy people. So they appoint me as a manager and give me a sum of rupees 1 lakh. My job is to conduct knowledge sessions for our members, like you all who are attending today. So you all are members, and I have been given the task of conducting sessions for you all on a weekly basis. Now, suppose I, instead of spending the 1 lakh rupees on you all, I suppose buy an iPhone for myself. Or if instead of instead of this instead of knowledge sessions, I called Rajnikant for a dance show. Or simply I, instead of calling some reputed persons to deliver lectures, I call only my friends. So in such a situation, what would happen? Now, if this is a scenario which is a small organization where Professor Raghu and Rotarian Gopal would be there to monitor me. But imagine it's a large company with so many small shareholders or owners, we may say, scattered across India. Also, in my place, I am a young boy, but there are some senior managers, senior officials who are in charge, who cannot be questioned or checked repeatedly. And instead of 1 lakh rupees, suppose there are hundreds of crores at stake. So what would happen? There is a 100% chance, like Vijay Mallya, you must have heard his case. So there is a 100% chance that something wrong will happen. So friends, in this scenario, the role of a company secretary is important. He is the backbone of a company. So he performs 3 key roles for a company. One is advisory. So he advises the management. Legally, we call them the directors. On if the directors, whatever transaction they want to do. So legally, how can we do it? What is the procedure? What are the implications? He gives advice. Second is, he also is the watchdog. As I mentioned that in the example, that suppose if I do something wrong, so if there is a CS, he will keep a watch on the management, whether everything is correct, whether the interests of the shareholders, that is the owners, and also the company are being looked into, whether something wrong is happening. He will check that. And third is of a compliance head. So the company law requires statute. The law which governs the companies, that is the Companies Act, it requires various formalities, various procedures to be carried out by an organization for anything, right from starting the business to raising money to appointing some management to doing anything. They require some formalities to be done. So CS is the head of that compliance team. Now these 3 functions are performed by the CS in 2 ways. Either as an employee. So as Rotarian Gopal mentioned that there are some companies which are mandatorily required to appoint a CS. So in those companies, they have a CS team. Like Reliance Industries, if I have correct information, has around 100 company secretaries. So they, as an employee, they will perform this function. Or they can also be a private practitioner, like a CA firm or a law firm is there. Like that, we have a CS firm. So the CS can also perform this function privately, where large number of small companies who cannot afford a whole-time CS, they will be his clients. Or even if the large companies have some critical issue or they want certain certificates, so the CS in practice would get involved. Fortunately, you are at the right stage where the scope of a CS has gone way beyond all this. There are many other areas in which a CS is involved. For example, there is a capital market. You must have heard about Sensex, Nifty, the stock market. A CS is integrally involved in that. Or now, like a lawyer would fight cases in Supreme Court or High Court, now the companies, there is a separate court called a National Company Law Tribunal. In that, even a CS can appear like a lawyer. Also, if a company goes into losses, like recently, maybe if some people are aware, there was a Jet Airways airline which went into losses and it had to shut down. Now, in such a scenario, a CS can be appointed to revive such a company. This is an insolvency professional. He's called an insolvency professional. For the want of time, I cannot go on. But there are a lot of other things that a CS can do. If nothing, even you can go in teaching. There are many CS academies and institutes where a CS can teach. Now I would give a brief idea of the CS curriculum and the CS institute. So like you have your Madras University or Tamil Nadu University or different colleges, there is a CS institute in Delhi called the Institute of Company Secretaries of India, which looks after the CS profession. It has its head office in Delhi and regional offices in Mumbai, Chennai, Calcutta, like that, and then there are local chapter offices. So the CS curriculum, again, another thing which you are very lucky is that earlier, before January 2020, it had three levels: foundation, intermediate, that is executive, and final level. But fortunately for you all, in January, the CS Institute has amended its laws, and now there are only two levels: intermediate and final. And before that, you have to appear for an entrance test. Like you must be aware of the medical entrance test or the engineering entrance test. Like that, after 12th, you can appear for a CS executive entrance test called CSET, which is a 200-mark paper, and it is for 2 hours. And there are four subjects: English, economics, legal aptitude, and current affairs, and multiple choice. So it's not a very big difficulty for you all. You can study sincerely and clear that. Then once you clear that, you come to the intermediate level. In CS, we call it executive. That has got 8 papers. So now, since they are all difficult papers, they have divided into groups. We call them groups. So 4 papers are in one group. So there are 2 groups. Also, one thing to be noted is that CS exams happen twice a year, in June and December. So if I have a choice, either I give all the papers in June, or I give all the papers in December, or I can give one group at a time, 4 papers at a time. So this is the way it is. Once I clear my CS executive, I go to the final level, that is the professional level. Again, that also has 9 papers divided into 3 groups, 3 into 3. So that also I have a choice whether I give all the papers at once or I give in groups. The syllabus is mainly 80% theory because it involves law, and 20% is practical, accounts or financial management or some part of tax. So because it's theory, maybe it's easy for a blind person to do. But I would not like to scare you, but just to give you an idea, why I'm saying these attempts or why groups, because in CS the passing percentage is very less. So if 100 students are giving an attempt, only 6 to 7 would clear the attempt. Nevertheless, there are unlimited attempts and also there is flexibility. So generally, if you do your work sincerely, you would clear your exams. Now, apart from the exams, there is also a practical training which is required to be done, which we call as articleship. So this articleship is done in 2 ways. Either you work for a company like Reliance or Tata, which has a CS department. So you work in that department, or you work for a private practitioner, say a CS firm. There you do your training. The 21-month training, and to make everyone level, to have some uniformity. The institute also conducts 2-3 months training. Like this also is new for you all. So there is a 1 month specialized residential training called Corporate Leadership Development Program. This to be introduced by the institute, and which will have everything, right, from meditation to yoga to public speaking to CS practical coaching. All the best people will come to train you for that, so that way you will be ready for the profession. Also another fortunate thing for you all, if you all go in, is that till now the institute was mostly only involved in providing material. It used to only provide study material and it used to conduct exams. So we had to go for private coaching, or some people would study on their own. But now, since the last few years, the institute also has been involved in direct education. So there are many online webinars. Also, there is a lot of content, videos available on YouTube. And also there are some oral coaching classes, like in big cities like Chennai. Surely there would be some oral coaching classes by the institute itself. Now, a few facilities for the blind. The first advantage is that you have a big fee concession. So, for example, when I paid my final level fees, which costed me 12,000 rupees, the institute gave me 100% discount. Like it was for all disabled people, it was 100% discount. Or in exam fees, there is 75% discount. So that would be a big advantage for us. The second thing is that in the exams, you are allowed the facility of a writer. You must be aware of a scribe, so that you can avail. And the third also is that you also have additional 1 hour time. Like these two facilities are there with other academies also, but just for the record. So giving a general picture, now I would come to myself. So I am based out of a city called Nagpur, also popularly called by some as the Orange City. It's in Maharashtra, and currently I'm working in Mumbai. So I have one parent. My mom is a doctor, Dr. Shahnaz. She's working in Nagpur. And so I did my schooling from my hometown only in a CBSE school. I did my 10th and 12th also in commerce stream from my CBSE school. Then I got admission in many of the good schools, colleges outside my hometown. But since I was not sure how to study in a big city, I did my 5 years law from my hometown. That is BA LLB, 5 years course after 12th from my hometown. And parallelly, along with that, I did CS. Now, why CS? As Rotarian Gopal rightly mentioned, the scope of CS is increasing rapidly, but the quality of CA professionals around, like the good professionals, are very few. So there was a lot of scope for doing good work here. That's why I enrolled for this course. Now, how did I study? So, as I mentioned, that the CS Institute did not allow us any, there was no coaching available. Like that was not there for CA also. So I cannot blame the institute. That was a trend. So there was no coaching by the institute. So there were some friends who studied on their own, but I availed for private coaching. Now why private coaching? So one was that it's a very big syllabus. It's a complex thing. It keeps changing. So I wanted some guidance. And second advantage also when you go for a coaching or attend a webinar is that like being blind, it's challenging for us to read a lot. So when we listen to someone, we can understand many things. Like as someone has rightly said, listening once carefully is equal to reading it 10 times. So I prefer to join a private class. Now, for the theory subjects, it's not a challenge because they would be reading from the material or they would be giving some notes. But what about the practical subjects? You might be thinking, how will I understand the accounts or the financial management? So here, one thing I would like to tell you all, because you all are young, that in life you should remember that you should be able to speak your mind. Like whatever challenges you have, whatever situations you are facing, whatever facilities you need, you should be able to voice them. So when I joined my coaching, I had voiced this to my teachers that I cannot see. So they were very kind. So what they used to do is that when they would write a sum of accounts or anything on the board, like because obviously in practical subjects you need the blackboard. So whatever they wrote on the blackboard, they would speak aloud. Like if they are writing some formula, cash account debit to bank account. So they would speak it. If they are making a table, they would say that I am making a table. These are the columns. And obviously, and I would listen to them carefully. My commerce background was there, so I had some basics clear. And there were friends who helped me a lot. And like, so I couldn't solve the sums along with my friends, but I would take their copies and I would read it at my home. So this is the way, and also I requested my teachers to give me notes in soft copy. Some of them very kindly agreed to that. So how did I read for my studies? So earlier my eyesight was slightly better till my first or second year of graduation. So I could generally read the normal books which are available, tutorial notes or the CS modules or whatever. So obviously I had to make the font big or maybe I had to sit in sunlight. So I managed. But then when I was giving my intermediate, as I mentioned that I also had my law exams. So the volume, it became very voluminous for me. So then I availed the services of a reader. Now what is a reader? So a reader was like a person, sighted person who would come to my house and he would read out things to me. Like whatever books were there, tables were there, he would read out and describe it to me. Generally, I would ask the private coaching classes. They would, like they would have home tutors. So I would ask them for a person who was good in English. So now when you hire a reader, generally some of the NGOs also are helping with that. So in Chennai, maybe we can find out and let you know. But then, so those readers you have to ensure two things. When you call someone to read, first he has to have good English. Because whatever he is reading is what is you are gaining. That is the knowledge which you are gaining. If he reads the wrong thing, you will learn the wrong thing. So his English and his pronunciation should be very clear. The second thing should be dedicated. Like one reader was there, he used to keep an alarm. If he used to read from 5 to 6, so at 6 o'clock his alarm would ring and he would get up. Then even if something was left or something, he would not bother. So such kind of things we cannot tolerate because we have a problem and we need some support. So that person should be dedicated, sincere, and that is to be ensured. Now, readers may be slightly costly, so there are other options. One is that you can also scan your books and read them by computer. So Professor Raghu was saying that there are people, you all are aware of screen reading softwares on your laptop or a desktop. So you can scan your books and then read them. You have to convert those books using a means called optical character recognition or OCR. There are some softwares like Fine Reader, Kurzweil, etc., which do this function, and then the document is available in MS Word. Now, the concern is that, okay, many things can be read like this, but many times the tutorial notes are there. So they have, suppose some underlining is there, or suppose they have some watermark, some picture. So that would be converted by the software in some unique form. So that part of the text would be totally disruptive. So maybe you have to have a proofreading, like someone has to, some sighted person has to check the material before you can read. So I did it personally with the help of my mother and some people. But then it was difficult for me. So then there is an NGO called Snehankit Helpline. It's in Bombay. So I used to courier my books to them, and they would scan, they would convert in Word, they would check it and then send it to me. Even the tables and charts in taxation, they did it very efficient. And they only charge for the scanning. The rest everything is free. So that was very helpful. And the third option which you have to study is voice recording. Like if there is a book, a sighted person will read it and record it for you. Then you can listen to the recording. So there are some devices called Angel, Abrar, etc., which they are handheld devices like a mobile, where these recordings can be stored and you can listen to them. Now this voice recording actually it's difficult to have people to do it, but recently I heard of an NGO called Lit by Humanity. So they are doing it for the IAS, the civil services, but we can ask them for CS also. Like they have a group of sighted people who are recording these books. So this is the way you can study, either by appointing a reader or by this voice recording or scanning and reading on your computer. And if you are reasonably good eyesight, maybe you can read, using a magnifier also. Now, how did I write my exam? So earlier I was able to write my exam till my second year of graduation, or you can say even till my executive intermediate level. But in my second group, my intermediate, that was in December 2013, something unfortunate happened and I failed that exam. So when I called for the photocopies, like you can call for an answer book. So although I admit that maybe the content might not be good, but one reason was that my handwriting had become very poor. It was going across the line. So my well-wishers advised me to go for a scribe. So it means basically someone can write my exam. And the guidelines of the ministry, like my Nagpur chapter, fortunately followed them. Some of the chapters, frankly, of the CS Institute are not obeying, but that is a challenge. But if they obey, so you can take your own scribe, or otherwise the institute provides the scribes, which you can also check and ensure that the correct scribe is given. So now, how do you get the right scribe? There are 3-4 things which you should keep in mind. Firstly, ensure that the scribe is an intelligent student. Why? Because CS is a very difficult exam and you have to be able to explain him to write. So many times there are some charts, there are some formulae, there are some sums which have to be done. So if the person is intelligent, he will be able to understand you easily. Secondly, the person should be very sincere and dedicated. Like you will not believe, but in one of my exams, my writer was not at all good. So she even stopped writing in between. Like she was eating some curry in between, or she went to the washroom, and I failed that exam. So it is very essential that your writer should be very sincere, dedicated, and that person should treat it as his own exam. And third, obviously, is that the writer should have good handwriting and presentation, because otherwise, how will the examiner understand? Now, why I also say this is because if you see the institute, the way the exams take place, for the paper checker, like, okay, the institute is allowing you facilities, institute only is allowing you these facilities. But when it comes to the paper checker, he was not aware that you had a scribe. For him, it is only Turab or it is only Professor Raghu who is giving the exam. He doesn't know that this person is blind. So he will just check that way only. So if the person has written wrong, you will get wrong marks. You will get poor marks. That's why it is very essential to have a good scribe. Also, it is sad, and probably Professor Raghu might also have experience, that the sighted people always doubt us. Like they always think that the blind people, they don't see our challenges. They think that the blind people are cheating. Like they are making the scribe study, or so be very careful with your scribe. Like once what happened in one of my exams, the scribe had her exam on the next day. So she was reading for her exam before we went in the exam hall. She was reading her own subject, but there were some doubts raised that she was reading my paper. So although nothing major happened, we were able to quash it in time. But if we would have not done it, things would have been hazardous. Like people were saying that she was studying for me and coming. So be very careful of these things. Also ensure in the exam hall that the scribe is sitting away from you, because it is very sad, but most of the evaluators, they never trust us and they keep checking us whether we are cheating, whether the scribe has got some chits. They even check our water bottles. So this is a negative atmosphere, but that is the way it is, and like so we should be careful. This is as regards my education. Now the training which I mentioned. So as I mentioned, we have to do a training for 21 months. In my time, it was 15 months. So I did my training with a company secretary firm in my hometown. My boss name was Nilesh Jain. So now, initially, since we are at trainees and we are freshers, we generally get routine work. So what we have to do is we have to carry out the compliances on behalf of our companies. Most of our clients are large companies. So if they have to carry out some procedures, we have to do the legal compliance. Now, suppose they have to increase the capital, that is, they want to bring in more money. So we have to file a form called SS7. Before that, we have to prepare some resolutions. Now, for the resolutions, we have to get the details of the companies, like their name, directors, and all that. So, generally, the client would give us the details. So, sometimes the client would give a hard copy document, like handwritten, that I would read. Earlier, my eyesight was better, so I used to read with a magnifier. Or sometimes they would mail us scanned documents that I would convert with my software and read. Now, this was very challenging because the handwriting would not be clear or the scanning would not be proper. It was a very time consuming exercise. And the worst problem was that after we have prepared these documents, we have to file a form. I mentioned that like there's a form called SS7 for bringing in more money. Or if you want to appoint a new manager or director, you have to file a DI at 12. Now, these forms, the ministry website is totally inaccessible with our software. That's a very big challenge for us. No, but you must be thinking that if these challenges are there, why am I here, or why are we having this discussion? So, friends, if there are challenges, there are always opportunities. So, this is a very routine work. So, while I face these challenges, like I was facing these challenges, and fortunately, my knowledge of the subject was good. So, my boss shifted me to cream work. Like often for sighted people, they are supposed to do this work for at least 2-3 years before they can get some quality assignments. But because I had this challenge, in few months only my boss gave me quality work. Like if I have to give some legal opinion, or if I have to make some agreement, or some flow chart for the office, some checklist, all that quality work I used to do. So that was a blessing in disguise for me. And also, like I did not do this earlier, but maybe since you all are now starting, so what you can do also is in your training, you can have an assistant. Like maybe if your some friend or someone is there who is free, who's studying in BCom, he's having some time. So few hours, some sighted friend you can get along with you to your office. So that way he can help you out with these things like this compliance or things which we cannot do. That person can help you out. So that way what happens is that the other colleagues also are not burdened. Like you can do your work independently. If you want to go to some court, if you want to go to some office, that person can take you. So if possible, have a sighted assistant with you for some hours. And also it is important to maintain good relations with your colleagues. So fortunately, my relations with my colleagues are very good. So even if I would ask them silly doubts, like, please can you read this name or can you click this button? So they would not mind. So that is important for us. Then after I completed my CS, I did my masters in law from Hyderabad, Nalsa, because I wanted an additional qualification. Because as it is, we have a challenge. So it is always better that if we have a disability, it is always better to compensate it with something additional. That's why I did an additional course in Nalsa, Hyderabad. I did a 1 year course and then I was looking for opportunities in Bombay. So I may tell you that it's difficult for us and that's why I encourage more people to do CS, because now there are very few sighted people. Like I am qualified and there are some others who are studying. So it's better if we are more of us, then we will get more opportunities. Because now there are hardly anyone in CS, so people are not aware of our abilities. Like whenever I used to go for interview, they would talk about my qualities, but they would say, "Arey, you are disabled. How will you work? How will you type on a computer? So they would ask such basic questions. So it's difficult for us to get in. So, but then finally, I got a good offer. One person was there; he was able to understand my situation. He also appreciated my positive attitudes, and I got a job in a leading CS firm in Mumbai, MG Consulting. So that is where I'm working. So it is challenging for us, but also now the facilities for you all have improved a lot. Like I mentioned, the area opportunities have improved. Now that clerical work, even if you don't do, there are many other things which you can do. Also, the material is easily available. At our time, we had to go to the various coaching classes from one place to another. Now, most of it is online. You have to just purchase a pen drive and you can attach it to a laptop and you can listen. Also, now I would just mostly just complete it by saying a few things which you as blind people must do so that you can achieve your goals. First is that you should accept yourself. So we all have challenges. Even sighted people like have some challenges. Whatever God has given us, we must accept our challenges. Whatever disability we have, we must accept it, and then we must operate accordingly. Like many people say, many disabled people say, like normally it is not like this. Normal people do that. There is no normal like that. Like for us, it is normal to read from screen readers. For some sighted person, he can read from a book. For us, it is normal to walk with a cane. So whatever we are, we should accept it and act accordingly. The second thing is that we should be visible. See, as it is, if you as you must be aware, the view of the sighted community towards us is very negative. They will say, "What will a blind person do? Is he able to earn on his own? Can he even understand anything?" So they are very negative. Therefore, we have to be very visible. Now, how did I do that? So, in the CS Institute, there are various seminars and conferences which keep taking place. So, I used to regularly attend those conferences and I would participate in that. Also, what I would do, I would always sit in the front rows. So, in the front rows, what happens? All the big people sit. So, if you that way you can interact with them, you can ask them some doubts, you can have a contact with them. So, if you have an informal relation with some senior people, you can easily get into job opportunities because then they will be aware of your potential. So, it is important to network and be visible. Maybe I also used to participate in various competitions. So, in your Chennai, there may be sure the South India Regional Council must be active and there must be many activities taking place. So if you register for CS, be active in that. Like you will get an email for anything which is happening. Try to be involved. You can also write, like there are various portals or various magazines which are launched by the institute. You can also contribute your articles, poems, not necessarily even CS. Other things also you can contribute. That way people will know about you. And the third and most important is to maintain relations. Like you should maintain good relations with people, sighted people. Like you all now 9 people are there. So if you can connect with each other, that way you will be a support system for each other. And if you are already connected, then the help is not a problem. Like if I don't know someone and if I have to ask him help, if I don't know Professor Raghu and if I need some guidance, so I will think 10 times. How will I ask? What will he think? Will he talk to me? But if I have a rapport with him, he will think that, oh, he's my own only. He's my friend. What is the problem? I will help him. So maintain good relations with people. And also fourth, I am aware that most of you all are using softwares, but be aware good with your computers. If you are good with your computers and if you are good with your Android mobile, you can do very well because everything is now on mobile and computer, especially after Corona. So if you accept yourself, if you are good on computers, if you are visible in your field, and if you maintain good relations, surely you will do well. At the end, I would like to tell you a couple of things I missed mentioning earlier, but there are some online libraries available for material. I am not sure if most CS material would be available, but a lot of useful things would be there. One is Sugamya Pustakalaya, and one is Bookshare. So if you can, check them, they would be helpful. Also, there is a mailing list called Access India, so where all the visually challenged people are connected. So if you mail, like it's like a WhatsApp group. If you send a mail on that list, everyone can read, and then they can reply to your queries. You can also read of other people, and also there is a helpline called iWay. So I will share the number with Professor Raghu. It's iWay, EYEWAY. It's a very useful helpline. So if you call them, whatever query you have related to blindness, you can call them. Also, they have a WhatsApp like broadcast. Like if you save the number, we keep sharing some useful information about blindness on WhatsApp. So that would be useful to you. So this was my brief presentation. If there are any questions or anything.
So tell me, Mr. Turab,
Yes, sir.
when you started with this materials, I was listening to that you were going to someone, scanning them, getting it. Don't you have that facility? For example, there were in Mumbai, we have heard that there are people to help you out for visual impaired. Well, I suppose you should have done it in last 5 years, correct?
Sorry, I didn't get you, sir. Means like you were saying that the facility was not available before 5 years. That
correct. Yeah, I'm asking you that way. So by 2013, I don't know the year, but by then, people were good at technology. There were available resources. But is there any problem? Like really, there were no facilities there for you?
Sir, in my hometown, you are asking?
Yeah, now when you did your CS,
Yes, sir.
you said you went to one's place, you paid for that scanned copy.
No, sir. I used to send them online. Actually, sir, the problem with the scanning is there were facilities in my hometown also. There was an NGO also. But what happens is, sir, these notes are there which are 300, 400 pages, right? Now, sir, many times they have this watermark or something. So if we scan them, we can easily scan them and at home also. But when we scan them and convert them into Word, there are a lot of errors. Like there are too many errors in every line because most of the notes have a watermark. So that watermark creates a different image and a large number of errors. That's why then, sir, I had found out of this Niyankit helpline online through Access India, and that's why I had to courier them these books, and they would do it for me. Because like proofreading is a challenge. Like one per sighted person.
What is the software they used, or do you have any idea? Because
yes,
the understanding is we are using Kurzweil, we are using Fine Reader.
Yeah, so that's the same. So that software is not the problem. Conversion also we can also do that they use only. But sir, after that the editing which is done now, so that is a problem. So that then someone physically has to do it. Like there was a lady called Sangeeta Vinod. She used to do my tax notes. So every day she used to take 1 hour to do say 2-3 pages. So that there is no solution because too much of editing is required. So we have to only request the teachers to give in soft copy. Otherwise, then like there's no other option. Conversion and scanning is not a problem, sir. But this editing is a big problem.
Another important question I have is there maths involved in this company secretary, or is it only theories?
Sir, maths is involved in accounts. Like we have a subject called accounts in intermediate, and there is a subject called financial management. Now, as per the new syllabus, both are intermediate level. So in that, you have this like accounts has basic calculations. In financial management, there is calculation. There is complicated calculation. Like we are allowed a calculator. So maybe I don't know if we are allowed a talking calculator because I used to take a calculator and my Scribe used to operate that for me. So in accounts, it's very basic plus minus, but in financial management, it's slightly complicated. Like we have to take those compounding of interest and all that. So that is slightly challenging. But because there's a calculator, it's okay. It's doable.
வேற யாராவது நண்பர்கள் கேட்கிறீங்க? யாராவது கருத்துக்கள் சொல்றதுக்கு இருக்கா?
Sir, I have a question. Sir, see, when you face the challenge, so did you not think, is it a very new one? Can I do you have anything in your mind? Can I continue or can I change my path? Did you have any thought like that, sir, when you are facing the challenges?
Yeah, thank you. This is a very nice question.
In your field.
Yeah. So I have faced this many times. Like I mentioned once in my intermediate level, I failed one exam. So actually I had prepared very hard for it and I failed that attempt. So actually, and maybe because when I took the photocopy from the institute, I found that my handwriting was poor. So it was not in my hand actually. So that time I felt very bad and some people suggested that you should take a break or something. That time I thought about it, but then I thought that we can overcome it. So then I studied very hard and then In fact, next time I got very good grades. Like I got 80 in company job. So yeah, you get that feeling many times, but then like what has motivated me more than anything is like the amount of things that people have done for me. Like there are many sighted people who have helped me so much. So I think that if they are putting so much efforts, so at least I should do this. So that way I used to always get motivated.
Where can we?
Thank you, sir.
Where can we go?
Mr. Turab, this is Mahesh here.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Sir, this course, supposing if a college student is interested in taking this course, so but he's halfway through, is there any chances of him proceeding after his graduation?
Yeah. So perfectly he can. Like earlier after graduation you could directly go into the second intermediate level, but now only you have to give that entrance test. So you have to appear for the entrance test and you can go for it. There's no restriction.
No, sir. See, supposedly if that particular student has not taken accounts or something, maybe he has got mathematics.
So means you are saying that some other graduation, like some non-commerce, like some BA or something, you are saying like that.
Yes.
You can do it because now actually there are only two subjects. Earlier there was lot of accounts and all. Now there are only two subjects which are accounts and FM. So that will be really difficult for you. But that also, if if you have some additional coaching or someone can help you with those two subjects, then it's not difficult. Like I have a friend who has done BSc, and then done it, like Bachelor of Science and done it. So only one or two subjects will have problem. Otherwise, you can easily do it.
Because for the past 3 years, there are a lot of students. They're going into CA courses, ICWA courses, because the demand is very, very huge.
Yes,
so everybody wants to become an auditor. So because there's a drastic shift from engineering or STEM to this accounting side. So there is a lot of opportunities for the students. So thank you for answering. Thank you for answering.
For my question, how did you fix this vision, sir? Is somebody inspired you to become a company secretary, or from your 12th or 10th standard you have fixed on your own to become a company secretary, sir? How did you fix this vision?
No, actually I did not have any particular plan, or I was not aware also in my 12th. Like you all are aware, I was no idea. So after my 12th, I cleared my 12th. I was thinking like I had taken admission in law, but that was not very difficult because my town is very small, so college was not tough. So I wanted something challenging, and CA, because of accounts and numbers and all, maybe I was hesitant. So I thought I will do this. Someone advised me about this, and then I started doing this course.
So tell me, Mr. Turab, you were in a private company. You are working now.
Yeah. Yes.
How do they choose you? Like, what is the interview process? What are the questions asked? How do they treat you, your disability? And how did you come through that?
Sir, actually, that way I'm very fortunate that my organization has a very positive outlook towards me. So, in the interview, actually, there were, in this interview particularly, it was very positive experience. Like, they generally ask me questions about my abilities only, like what have you studied, what can you contribute, like that only, where have you interned and all. And disability only they ask me like how will you manage, like how do you type. So I explained to them, I showed them my computer, this is the way I type, this is software I use. Then they asked me how will you search for the files on the computer. So like that basic questions they asked me. Otherwise they did not, they only want to know whether I can manage or not. Otherwise disability for them has not been such a big thing. Like they generally involve me in all discussions and give me work and all. Sometimes it happens that you get too monotonous work, but then generally the approach of the organization has been very positive.
Any other question?
Can you hear me, sir? This is Chinna Lepasami. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, sir. We heard that you are a secretary of company. So, can I know what are the jobs that you have to done in your career, sir, in your role?
What do
And
you
how
do,
can
sir?
you manage that
Continue.
work related to the maths or accountants? And what are the technologies are you using? Can I know that, sir?
Yeah. So my work mainly, as I said, CS involves various work. So in simple language, it is like there are companies, okay, there are clients. So if they have to execute some transaction, like suppose if there is a company, okay, we are client now ABC Limited. So if they want to appoint some new manager, so they have to have a particular format, a particular procedure has to be followed. So we help them in that procedure. First, we have to prepare the documents. Then also we have to file the forms. This is one work which we have to do. In my case, another work which I have to do, especially because we have a big team, is that I have to conduct PowerPoint presentations for my team. Like my boss is interested in knowledge management, so he says that whatever new developments are there in the law or some complicated subjects are there, for that I have to prepare PowerPoint presentations. So that too we can do by JAWS and all. As regards accounts or something, actually I have not really required to do much of calculations or something. No accounts or maths related work. Otherwise, you can do that on computers. Like there are many sites, blind people who are working as CAs also. So they use Excel or they do it in Excel mainly. And as for softwares, I don't like. I have JAWS. You must have heard of JAWS and NVDA. So
Yes.
I have that on my laptop. And apart from that, I don't really need anything. There is one fine reader, as Professor Raghu mentioned, a fine reader. That is to convert any scanned document to the text. So mainly JAWS and fine reader are there.
Sir, I think this role, I think you might be have been appointed or promoted, sir. I think in which role you have been appointed, sir? And
Yeah,
in the
I am
first,
actually now executive only. Like I am in the lowest level. So my job is I am in one of the teams. Like our job is to deal with listed companies. Listed companies means those companies which are listed on the exchanges. Which shares are trading in the market. You must be aware. So those kind of large companies, I am in that department. So we have to look after those large companies and their legal formalities all.
yeah. Thank you, sir.
You said about this manager office
Yeah,
joining and you are supporting them from back end by
yeah,
creating some documents and everything, correct?
yes.
Can you explain that in simple terms? What do you do exactly? Just
Yeah.
give
So
some heads. Yeah?
yeah. So suppose there is one. Okay. Now in legal time language we call him a director. Okay. Like manager,
Right.
I am saying for simple language, say director. So suppose there is a person who is appointed as director. So there is a procedure to be followed. Like first, there has to be a meeting like of a board of directors. Okay,
Mm.
board of directors who are the people who are running the company. So first they will have a meeting. Okay, then after the meeting they will have to pass a resolution to appoint him. After the resolution is approved, then that resolution has to be intimate. Now that transaction has to be intimated to the ministry, that is to the register of companies. So then we have to file a form to intimate that transaction. So first we have to call a meeting of the board. So we have to first draft a notice for the meeting. Then the directors will come for the meeting. Okay, they will have a meeting. Then they will pass a resolution. So we have to draft a resolution and place it before the meeting. Then the directors will approve the resolution. Okay, and suppose that person is appointed. So that person, that resolution has to then be intimated to the ministry. So we have to take a copy of the resolution and along with the form, online form, we have to attach it and send it to the ministry. Now, apart from that, as I mentioned, that there was a meeting. So the law requires that every meeting there should be a proper record maintained. Who are the members who came? What time was the meeting? Whether the resolution was approved or not? What were the discussions? So we have to draft the minutes of that meeting. So that minutes also has to be made. So like that for different transactions, we have to follow an entire procedure. First, we have to call a meeting. Then we have to pass the resolution. Then there are some prior approvals which are required. Like in this case, the director has to be appointed. So first, he has to give a written consent to the company that I want to be appointed as a director. That consent has to be placed before the meeting. Then that has to be intimated to the ministry. So like that, procedures are there. See, some transactions are there which are major. So the approval of all the shareholders, that is the owners of the company, are required. So we have to call their meeting also. So again, we have to do the formalities for that. So this is that way we have to follow various procedures before doing
So
transaction.
all these things, do you do, or is there part of it you do?
So generally, actually, these meetings and all, to be very honest with you, like for the small companies and all, they don't really happen. So they are paperwork only. So generally, it's not very difficult. Like one person, if the smaller transaction, one person can also do it. Like you have to just draft the minute notice, then you have to draft the minutes, file it. So it's not a very big challenge. For larger transactions, if it is taking time, then maybe 2-3 people would get in it.
So you prepare these documents, correct? You help the
Yes.
companies to prepare these documents, correct?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, we guide them and also prepare the documents. Mainly, we do everything for them.
Correct. Right. So, how many months have you? Are you working, or how many years?
I joined this job in November 2018, so it's almost 1.5
How about the
years.
package for you, like the salary package?
Yeah, currently it's 40,000 and 5,000 for expenses, so it's 45,000.
So, any more questions? So, I suppose there are very few questions, and there are very few participants. But anyway, you really have accepted, understood, and have really shared your time so far, and you have really helped us understand the value of company secretary role, and as well the way in which you have come up and been a role model to everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Since it is a very new area, people are still are yet to understand the merit and come up. Hope in the near future, many will also march into this company secretary, because a little long back, I had happened to meet one gentleman from America. He is Mr. Asai. Okay, he is running a foundation called Asai, and wherein when I was talking about all these facilities for the visually impaired in Tamil Nadu, he told me one astonishing thing. It was astonishing to me for the first time, because that was the first time I heard that um, the Americans know about all these things. We have a visually impaired in the atomic energy as a secretary, okay, to the chief officer in the atomic energy, to the director in the atomic energy. In fact, the person to whom I spoke was the chairperson of the atomic energy, and he said my own personal secretary was a visually impaired. Right? So that is how the Americans have given a bigger role, a space for visual impaired to go for any role. In the same light, I see company secretary Turab Chimthanawala as one of the pioneering role models for the Indians, the visually impaired in India, to aspire to achieve, and also to contribute to the society, the mainstream society, and be a part of an inclusive environment, and prove that disability is no more a barrier. Right? Thank you so much, Turab,
Thank you very much for the
for the
opportunity.
time.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you are really made a day. You are really explained well. There are certain things which we are able to understand easily. There are certain things which we are really not able to understand. In the sense that troubles, the difficulties, the challenges, the practical things that you have really overcome is the real inspiration to all of us. That is where we need to really learn lessons from you, and we have really understood that. And thank you so much. And thanks to all the participants who have joined in, right? In spite of their work, they have also shown interest to understand this. Hope one or two, right? As Rotarian Gopal said, one or two, if they could take this and implement, execute in their life, that is the success of this talk by Turab. Thanks to all. Meet again.
Thank you very much for the opportunity and thank you for the opportunity.